Hello everybody, hope you're having a wonderful day, and today I'd like to share with you guys another Amazon unpackaging. Now, I believe the individual who shared the sale of this particular knife was Tool Addicted Dylan or Knife Addicted Dylan. I forget which he goes by on either Instagram or YouTube, but I'm pretty sure it was Dylan that shared this. This was actually a knife that's been sitting in my cart on Amazon for like 5-6 months or something, and I just never pulled the trigger, but it went on sale, a couple bucks off, you know, a little bit goes a long way, and I finally picked it up. So we're gonna go ahead and use this guy right here. This is the CJRB website exclusive Pyrite Light. This has the rose gold blade. It's realistically more of a copper tone blade, still beautiful. I'm actually going to be putting out a full-length review mainly on just the knife and just talking a little bit more about my thoughts of this knife because this finish has actually really impressed me versus their traditional PVD coating. The PVD coating doesn't last for nothing, but this stuff has held up quite a bit. Still the same blade material, the AR RPM 9. It's good stuff. It's not super crazy in edge retention, but it does boast a couple other interesting features, at least when it comes to overall durability and corrosion resistance and all the basic good stuff. This is another CJRB. I've been getting a lot of these lately and a lot of their budget stuff. When it comes to CJRB, realistically for me, I think their budget stuff interests me a little bit more than some of their premium stuff. It's just their particular design language. There's some stuff I like, some stuff I don't. And this is by a wonderful designer in the community that I love his work. Absolutely love his work. And I'm talking about the wonderful Ray Laconico. I've handled a handful of his designs in the past, and there are so many more that I would love to get a hold on. But yeah, this is a collaborative work between Ray Laconico and CJRB. This is the Prado, however you like to pronounce it. There's no real right or wrong way about it. Not too sure what it means exactly, but it's supposed to be a larger, slim crossbar locking knife that is, affordable. And really, this is really just the answer to people wanting a larger crossbar locking knife from CJRB. Now, CJRB does have a handful of larger knives, but not crossbar locking ones. Another one that's been on my radar for a while is the Frack, but that's a button lock. And the Frack came about the same time where a lot of people were doing crazy spine whack tests on their button lock knives and they were failing. So realistically, the Frack is a model that I am most likely going to get before this year ends, so you guys will see it. I mean, you guys heard it here. So I'm probably gonna get one, whether it's the premium one or one of the budget versions of it. I think it's a wonderful looking knife. I believe it's an in-house design as well, but it's just a button lock. And while their button locks are very well executed, that knife was again produced at a time where the button locks were slipping and having issues. So it's still kind of a risky purchase, but realistically, I would absolutely love if the Frack was actually brought to the market a little bit smaller, because I've been told by everybody left and right that the Frack is actually like the biggest knife in CJRB's lineup. There might be like one other one that's a little bit larger than it, but even still, this guy right here, and not to take any away attention from this, I just want to talk about the Frack for a second. This thing right here, the Prado, it's pretty darn good looking. It's a really good looking blade. Now, one thing that did kind of, I guess, keep me from jumping on it immediately was the blade shape. This has a good bit of straight, but I don't want to say a broad belly, but the tip is a little bit higher than I would prefer. And I don't know if that's actually a flat. That might be, yeah, so it's not actually a straight back. That is a trailing clip point, whatever you would like to call it. But It's trailing, it's definitely on the longer side, and it clips because it's not completely flat. Now, if it was completely flat, I mean, this is something that could even be ground down for my personal preference if I wanted to do that. Which chances are that may be something I want to do. They offer this in a coated and non-coated, and the blade finish itself is just their standard blade finish. There's nothing super special about it. It's essentially a satin, right? Nothing super crazy. I do enjoy that this knife was very inexpensive, and the retention of those springs, the Omega springs in here, that's nice. That is really, really nice. They are super snappy. They are what I would consider high tension, and that should actually mean a lot to people who are watching this, because I've been known for being stupidly picky when it comes to the tension of Omega springs. There are a lot of wonderful knives that I've experienced that the main thing that killed it for me was the weakness of the Omega springs. And this just goes to show you that a knife doesn't have to be super expensive for it to have amazing crossbar locking action, and it also doesn't have to be made out of premium materials for the crossbar locking action to be executed to essentially a god tier. There is no adjustment. There's just the one hole. I can see right there. It might be a little bit difficult for you guys to see, but there is only one hole for the tension setting. It doesn't have anything like how the clutch lock is with Kaiser knives, or CMB made knives has there as well. They have, you know, variability as well. Inset steel liners, they look to be black coated, which is interesting. I mean, they could have just been silver, but they decided to coat the liners. There is a butt ton of weight relieving, which is awesome. I absolutely appreciate that. And speaking about weight, we can go ahead and take the weight on this guy. 3.4. That's honestly pretty impressive for the overall length of this knife, and it feels just about that. It's honestly really lightweight. This doesn't feel like a dense item at all. It feels relatively lightweight in hand, but an absolutely capable and useful length for sure. Let's take a look at something else that I am usually very picky about, and honestly one of the main things that will keep me from buying a knife is the execution of the plunge grind. Now, something that I have noticed from CGRB and Artisan Cutlery is their execution of plunge grinds are usually pretty freaking terrible. Honestly, they're pretty darn bad, especially for somebody who actually sharpens their own stuff and puts low angled edges on it. I love having a super slicey edge. This isn't a hard use knife whatsoever, so I'm gonna put what makes sense on this, which is a, you know, anywhere between a 15 to 18 degree edge. So that to me makes sense, and that's where I will get the most performance out of a blade like this. And with the AR PM9 blade material, it holds an edge pretty darn well, even with such a thin edge. But the plunge grind on this, it's executed pretty well for the most part. In the future, that is something that I should be able to widen up if I do choose to do so. Let's see if it hits anywhere. Yeah, so the crossbar lock is essentially acting as the close stop, which is, you know, typical. And then there's the traditional stop right there, a little stop pin in the open position. Man, I can't get over the tension of those Omega springs. They're awesome. Yeah, this thing has a good bit of tension. I love that. I just can't tell you guys how happy I am for this to actually have good tension. That is just freaking wonderful. I can definitely be able to appreciate this a whole lot more knowing that it actually has Omega springs that make sense for the knife overall. I mean, this is a large knife. Well, it's on the lengthier side. The blade isn't like super dense and massive. It's pretty darn thin. Comes down to a relatively thin edge, and with my experience with this blade material, sharpening it shouldn't really be anything different from what I've had so far. I do have a handful of my size comparison size knives out. We can go ahead and put it up the biggest one, up against the biggest one. This is going to be the MSI, and everybody who has this will know that yes, this is a knife that has quite a bit of presence in the pocket and in hands, and the Prado is actually not too far off behind it. Because of the angle of the camera, it does look like the MSI is significantly longer, but it actually isn't. They are pretty darn close in overall length, which is kind of insane because the MSI is the largest knife in my collection that I will actually use quite often and take out to work often. We could do something else as well. Let's do this guy right here, the Civivi Vision FG. As you can see, it is quite smaller, shorter overall. And this guy, this particular one, because I have 3 of these, this particular one is actually going to be joining the lineup moving forward as a size comparison size knife. So I have essentially 2 large, 2 medium, 2 small, and now I have this guy. It falls somewhere between the mediums and the smalls. I figured why not, since I have a couple of these. I'll have one for cardboard destruction, my original one. This one is going to be a size comparison, dedicated one. And then the white and black one that I got last week, that one's going to be one that I customize and, you know, put a color on it. I like teal. It's one of my favorite colors, as you could see from, you know, some of the stuff that I have. These are all my size comparison size knives that have some customization to them. And as you can see, there's a wide variety of what I consider to be teal. This is coming directly from the factory. It is a little bit more green than I would prefer. This is not stock. This was slightly dyed a little bit. This used to be ivory and now it's not. This used to be white and now it's not. The same thing with this guy right here. So I love the color teal. It's obnoxious, it's visually loud. That's just what I like, makes me happy. If you don't really care for colors, well, good news for you, this doesn't have to come in this particular variation. There's a blacked out one. There is, I think there might be a purple G10 one. Anyway, there's a couple different variations of this. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. So we got the weight. Let's go ahead and check the factory sharpness. The edge from the factory, I've come to expect middle ground, maybe a little higher than average, but the actual finishing of the edge, visually speaking, could be a little bit wonky, and especially on a blade shape like this. Already right off the bat, I could see that here on the right side of the knife, the tip is a little bit wider than it is on the other side. The belly, it almost looks like there's a tiny bit of roll here towards the heel. It's significantly larger from one side than it is of the other. Not the end of the world when it comes to being able to take this out of the box and use it right away. I'm sure the edge is plenty good for what you would need from a day-to-day basis. But with that being said, if a knife is, you know, this decent out of the box, it can only get better from here. So realistically, this is a little slick. It doesn't have a lot of bite. It has a decent working edge out of the box. But realistically, for the price, and again, I don't think I even mentioned the price. This thing usually floats around like 55, 65 bucks, something like that. I think maybe the ebony wood version, or the ebony wood version might be a little closer to 70 possibly, but this thing was, I think, just under 50 bucks. So I think that's a pretty good deal for what I'm feeling here. And I think that's what helped me to, you know, decide, yeah, this is something I do want to pick up, because I liked what I was looking at for the most part, but I had a feeling eventually it's probably going to go on sale, so I'll just wait till then. And so now I'm picking it up. But realistically, if this is actually going to stay in the collection, and I'm not just going to, you know, beat on it, sharpen it, and then sell it off like I do with some other stuff, which, again, there's nothing really wrong with that. If this is going to stay in the collection, what I would most likely end up doing is grinding down the tip so that there's no longer that clip, because realistically this will be a slightly problematic blade within my field of work. I do prefer more utilitarian style blades, but I love the look of a drop point. I think drop point is like the most elite blade shape, but for utilitarian use, obviously something Wharncliffe or sheep's footy, something like that. So chances are I'm probably going to bring that tip down a little bit. I will lose the tiniest bit of length, but realistically that's not that big of a deal. It's still a rather large knife, and I'll have plenty of blade to still be able to use for sure. I would probably end up bringing in that sharpening choil a little bit, maybe removing just the tiniest bit of that edge right there, just to kind of widen out that area, just so I can go and sharpen it a whole lot faster. This isn't something that I'm gonna take a whole lot of care into and being super careful. This is a particular knife where I just want to be able to grab and go, just pick it up and beat on it, take it back home and throw it in the case, and then pick up something else and use it the next day, where I don't have to worry about like, oh, I gotta be super careful and gentle with the edge when I'm sharpening it. I don't want to nick anything around here, or you know, rub too far down and create a giant ugly smile down here by the plunge grind. So that's just me. That's something that if you're a sharpener, if you were an actual knife sharpener and you do it for other people or just for your own personal collection, I'm sure you can understand the frustration when it comes to working with the execution of a poor plunge grind. When you start to create this like wonky looking area back there, it's not a good look, and really it doesn't affect the use of the knife. It's just visually speaking, it wears on the knife a whole lot more than you would want it to, than most people would want it to. Sorry about the little interruption there. So if you're at the point where you're just like, all right, dude, quit flapping your fucking gums. Is this something that feels good or not? Is it worth the money? Yes or no? In a way, while this is only a unboxing of first impressions and not the full length review, this does genuinely feel at this point in time like it's worth the money. Whether you get one at full retail price or you get one on sale, even better, of course. If you don't mind the blade shape, this is something that I believe a lot of people would enjoy. I wouldn't say that this is a hard use knife by any means. It's just an average everyday carry knife that will hold up to general remedial tasks. So that's pretty much it. The clip is reversible, if I didn't mention that. T8 for the pivot body screws, T6 for the pocket clip. A lot of standard stuff going on here, nothing super crazy and innovative. It's just a little bit of designy flair. That's all that this thing really is. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If it did, go ahead and leave a like down below. If you are subscribed, thank you so much. I appreciate all your support and your patience, of course. If you are not subscribed, please consider subscribing, because I have plenty more videos and content coming you guys this way. With that being said, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.